Dear colleagues, press briefing of President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky, statement by the President of Ukraine.
Good afternoon, dear attendees, dear journalists. First, about a complete ceasefire, about potential peace talks. Where are we? No. On March 11th, Ukraine fully supported the proposal of the United States of America in Saudi Arabia for a complete ceasefire. And the United States of America appealed for a compromise from the Ukrainian side. How you remember this? Because we talked about an energy ceasefire. We talked about safety at sea, etc. But the United States of America took a step forward and offered a complete and unconditional ceasefire. That is, this proposal is on the negotiating platform for 63 days. What happened during these 63 days? That is, Ukraine agreed to an unconditional ceasefire. Because we have shown that we want the war to end. And I have repeatedly emphasized this to President Trump. I believe that Putin does not want the end of the war, does not want a ceasefire, does not want any negotiations. I am already silent about the fact that he is afraid of direct negotiations with me. On April 20th, Easter. And all this time. You know that Russia has not supported a complete unconditional ceasefire since March 11th. Then on April 20th. On Easter there were signals in the media regarding Russia's idea of a ceasefire at Easter. What happened these days? Russian troops carried out 1882 attacks, 33 strikes on multiple launch rocket systems, 957 kamikaze drones were involved in hitting Ukraine. This is what happened. Ukraine acted, you know, as I said. Ukraine is ready to support the ceasefire and we will act in a mirror manner. That is, to say that there was a complete ceasefire on Easter is not true. There was no ceasefire. On April 26, I had a meeting in the Vatican with President Trump. I am grateful to him. It was a very good meeting. We both agreed with him that a complete ceasefire was needed, unconditional. And it is necessary to demand this from the Russian side, because Ukraine supports it. I said that we always fulfill what we promise. I said that in the next 2 to 3 working days we will sign an agreement, finalize. And then the agreement on minerals will be ratified in the Parliament of Ukraine. Ukraine has again done everything it promised. On May 8 and 10, Russia has again given a signal in the media space. Without any two-way track, just in the media space, that they are ready for a ceasefire for these days. These days, Russia has launched 115 airstrikes on Ukraine, dropped 197 guided aerial bombs, carried out 12,100 attacks. 187 of them were from multiple launch rocket systems. It also hit our civilian infrastructure in the amount of 7,303 drones, kamikaze drones. This was the ceasefire on their part. We received a signal from the Chinese side that they support the 30-day ceasefire proposed by Ukraine, as well as signals from China and other states that it would be fair to go to a complete ceasefire. And so that on these dates from 8 to 10 there would be security in the region where many leaders will be located, including China. We understand what we are talking about. Ukraine has once again confirmed with its steps that it always does what it promises. Despite Russian propaganda, there were no strikes on the parade on May 9th. On the 10th, we had a meeting with European leaders. Everyone confirmed that we must go to a minimum for a 30-day ceasefire. And if Russia does not support it, then all the allies of this, all our partners, they are conducting strong sanctions against Russia. This is especially true for their energy and banking sectors. I spoke from a coalition of willing people from 30 countries. And we gave signals that we were expecting that there will be strong sanctions packages from the United States and from countries in Europe, the European Union and other countries, which are not members of the EU but are European states. How did the Russian Federation react to the meeting on the 10th? We have heard again that we are not ready for an unconditional ceasefire. But they want direct negotiations with Ukraine on a ceasefire and other issues on how to end the war. Again, expecting that Ukraine does not support certain signals or will not react or will react in a way that will be beneficial to the Russian Federation. President Trump reacted as follows. Just want to remind you all. I think both leaders should get together and be there. I also perceive direct negotiations with the person on whom absolutely everything in Russia depends. Which means that not only the ceasefire depends, but also the end of this war that Russia has started against us. And that's why I immediately said I will be in Turkey on the 15th ready to meet with Putin. What is important? Another signal from the United States of America, namely President Trump. I insisted on a meeting, they could not agree, one said a ceasefire, the other said no, stop. Enough, go to the meeting. The meeting is already scheduled. Meeting on Thursday. It is clear that the only one who is ready for a ceasefire is Ukraine, and this is me. The other, who is not ready for any ceasefire, is the leader of the Kremlin. Absolutely understandable, because from the very beginning, 63 days ago, they did not support the ceasefire. I spoke with President Erdogan about our meeting. Again, I want to dot all the dots. Then there were no other unnecessary manipulations on the part of Russia and their leader. We talked with President Erdogan that I would have a meeting with him in the capital of Turkey. This is Ankara. It will be on Thursday, the 15th. We will wait for a meeting with Putin in Turkey. So that Russia does not manipulate cities and does not say that Putin is not ready to fly to Ankara and ready to fly only to Istanbul. I want to say right away that if Putin flies to Istanbul and not to the capital, I gave a signal to President Erdogan, and the Turkish side is ready that President Erdogan and I will fly to Istanbul. That is, in any case, we will do everything to make this meeting happen. If Putin is really ready to meet not only in the media but in real life, and then, at the level of leaders, we will do everything to agree on a ceasefire. Because it is with him that I have to negotiate a ceasefire. Because only he will solve it. We invited President Trump to join. I don't know the decision of the President of the United States. But in any case, if he confirmed his participation, I think it would have an additional impetus for Putin to arrive. This, in principle, is all I wanted to say.
Dear colleagues, time for your questions. The microphone is to your left or to your right. Please leave access to it free.
Mr. President, we want Putin to be in Istanbul, so that you can talk to him, so that we can somehow give a start, but we understand that maybe this is not the case. That is, it may not be. What are our plans for Putin? What will you discuss with him? What are the priority issues? And if not, but Russia, as it is now saying, is sending its negotiating team there, is the negotiating group from Ukraine ready for us to start negotiations with them there? Not yours with Putin, but Russia's negotiating group with Ukraine's negotiating group. Are we not considering this option at all, or only your direct negotiations with Putin? Thanks.
I consider the result anyway. The number one result is an unconditional ceasefire. An unconditional ceasefire for today. And according to the experience of all these days, months, a ceasefire cannot be ensured by any person on the part of Russia, except for Putin. The signal was from Russia regarding direct negotiations. The United States' support was for direct negotiations at the leadership level. I support this proposal. Why? Because Ukraine is constructive and supports any way to end the war. If Putin says today, I don't want to, again, there can be a billion reasons for direct negotiations. Then he wanted to, then he realized that I was ready, he didn't want to anymore. And if there is a move of his and he says he is ready for a ceasefire, then it opens the way to the negotiation of all other elements of the end of the war. All the many elements. Then the groups can meet and already have the political will of the leader or leaders, and it is clear that there will be one result or another. There will be a way. The path is open. If he is afraid, he will just meet me like this.
First a ceasefire, then other negotiations.
I believe that we should go to the main thing in any dialogue. Both sides will not enjoy the dialogue. Therefore, this means that we can get a result, which is much more important than any emotions. The result is the end of the war. Step 1 is a ceasefire. Everyone supports unconditionally. Let's do it. I will be in Turkey. Will be President Erdogan. Everyone is ready to meet with the Russian leader.
What are your next steps? What will you do if the meeting does not take place?
I believe that this means that there will be no result in one or another format of any meetings, etc. Everything has already gone deep enough. The issue of a ceasefire. Ukraine, all signals, all proposals, any moments that have been proposed by certain parties, countries, the United States, European countries, etc. What you know and what is left behind the scenes. Ukraine has demonstrated constructivism absolutely. We demonstrated that we are clear, understandable and want the war to end. Russia at every step. I believe that it is not Putin's arrival, but YFNJVBCNM games again. This is the final point of his demonstration. That they are not ready for the end of the war. This means that all promises, sober and clear promises of the United States of America, Europe, and the leaders of other countries must be fulfilled. Otherwise, you will not force and will not force Russia to take steps to one or another de-escalation format. This means that there will be sanctions. I can only expect at least a strong package of sanctions against Russia from the United States of America. And these are sanctions, look, not for aggression, not for occupation, etc. That is, there are already a million compromises. Sanctions for what they don't want. Even a ceasefire. This should be the strongest package of sanctions. Because this is the will to end the war. Or not. That is, this is a clear signal that they do not want and are not going to end the war. Or vice versa, they will demonstrate that they are not only serious with nuclear weapons, but even without it, they are capable of something. Therefore, it seems to me that a strong package of the United States, a strong package of Europe, we will be very, very grateful. Mr. President, 3 moments.
Please ARD then Ukrinform. Mr. President, 3 moments.
Are these 3 questions?
Quick. First, how possible is this meeting with Putin? I mean the decree of the National Security and Defense Council. Secondly, how exactly do you imagine this meeting? And third, EU leaders said, and European leaders said, that there would be swift sanctions when they were in Kiev. How quickly do you expect such sanctions from Merz and others?
There are dates when there are meetings of European countries. There are relevant dates. To be honest, I don't remember. But this, it seems to me, this month, the middle or maybe at the end of the month, we expect that this will be considered during the leaders' meeting. And there will be a strong package. I would frankly like the package to be at a minimum, at the level at which there is now a proposal in Congress, Lindsey Graham. A proposal for strong sanctions on energy and on the banking system. There's a strong package there. From what I've seen, I think there's a strong enough package out there. And if Europe can add to its package the strong steps of the United States of America, analogues, what concerns Europe, of course, we would be grateful. This, first of all, is important. Not a package for the sake of a package, but a strong package that will also affect the Russian economy. This is the first thing. As for the National Security and Defense Council, as I have already said, this is the narrative of the Russians that I cannot, as it were, talk to Putin. I want to remind everyone how all this happened. I adopted a decree. I just put into effect the decision of the National Security Council of Defense by decree. How was it? Ukraine has received ultimatums many times from Russia, namely from Putin. It started from the way Medvedchuk's people, Novinsky's, there are relevant witnesses, records, etc. They represented Putin's interests by talking directly to me, on the phone, at the most difficult moment, when we were in a complete blockade. They told me how to surrender Ukraine, the territories where I had to flee, otherwise I would be gone, my family, etc. That is, this is a long, long story. There were a lot of such ultimatums. When someone represented the interests of Russia, namely Putin, and gave appropriate signals. So all these people, they talked to Putin. And really wanted to represent the interests of Ukraine. There were more than one, not 2 such platforms regarding such signals, etc. By the decision of the National Security and Defense Council, I basically did what the Constitution of Ukraine says. This is what exactly only I can do, and it is I who fulfill this mission according to the Constitution of Ukraine. And no one, except me, can negotiate on the sovereignty, territorial integrity of Ukraine, our course. No one but me can negotiate with the leader of Russia and other countries. According to the Constitution of Ukraine. These are my rights and obligations, by the way. According to Article 106 of the Constitution of Ukraine, the President of Ukraine shall exclusively constitutional powers to represent the state in international relations, to direct foreign policy activities, to negotiate and conclude international treaties of Ukraine. And this is the Constitution of Ukraine. It is higher, by the way, from any regulatory act to any decree. The Constitution of Ukraine is a law. Therefore, it is I who represent the interests of our state, and so that there is no separatism. We introduce the decisions of the National Security and Defense Council so that people like Novinsky, Medvedchuk, I don't even want to say who else is there, from what other bodies, do all this. And they will still be responsible for all this someday. And I introduce the decision of the National Security and Defense Council by my decision, my decrees. Therefore, Putin's narrative that I should cancel something, there is a narrative exclusively of the Russian Federation. I can't and don't forbid myself anything.
There was also a third question.
How do I imagine?
How exactly?
On Thursday?
Yes.
I don't know. I can't even imagine. No, let's do it. I am ready to meet this person. I met in 2019, in December. I absolutely understand what to talk about. The truth is on our side. But I believe that we need to take the first step. The first step is for the sake of people. And the whole world already supports this. First of all, for the sake of Ukrainians, but also for the sake of any nation. Everyone wants the war to end. We want to agree on the beginning of the end of the war. At least about the beginning.
Mr. President, you said that you are ready to meet with Putin both in Ankara and in Istanbul. But the latest statements from Moscow that I heard indicate that Putin is afraid of meeting you. And it is possible that tonight or tomorrow he will be ordered to send his foreign minister or advisors to Ankara. Will a Ukrainian delegation be formed that will negotiate at the level of ministers, advisors? If there is such an order from Putin?
Any meetings should end, I emphasize once again, with the result. I reacted to what was in the media from both the United States and Russia. And, frankly, Europe reacted in the same way. I am ready to meet him. So far, we have not worked out or discussed other formats. Yes, I will not be alone. Fact. But that's not the question. The question is that we are considering exactly what has been proposed.
Mr. President, congratulations, Natalia Ostrovska, 1+1. If an agreement on a 30-day ceasefire is reached, are there plans to freeze the supply of American and European weapons? And the second question. Trump announced his intention to fly to Turkey. We know that he does not make such statements just like that. Can any document, some kind of agreement be signed in Ankara, in Istanbul?
I don't know it yet. This is not spoken. As for the signing of this or that document, it is not yet known. In any case, when there are relevant meetings, some kind of statement there is always. That in principle in many countries there are signings. And there is just a statement that means the same thing. It happens in different ways. Trump confirmed his visit to Turkey. Look, I don't know, I don't have information that Trump will fly to Turkey. You and I don't think I know much more than you, for you, I'm sorry. There are some signals, but so far we have no confirmation that it will be.
And about freezing the supply of American weapons?
We didn't discuss it. We didn't discuss it. With President Trump. We were frozen, do you remember when? Yes, it was before we confirmed an unconditional ceasefire, then there was a defrosting. Everything works like this to this day. Thanks.
Mr. President, greetings, Channel 24, Inna Nabok. Tell me, please, personally, do you believe that if there is a 30-day ceasefire, if Putin agrees to it, won't it be another gift for him to regroup and prepare for the summer offensive campaign? This worries our military.
No one knows in advance what will happen, what will occur. I understand, I believe, that this period will not be enough for anyone to fully recuperate. That is, a 30-day ceasefire is more about de-escalation, about the opportunity to open a dialogue. This is what it is about. Therefore, both the United States and Europe react in this way when Russia, for example, says that we want there to be no supplies at this moment, etc. Deliveries do not go like this. It won't help anyone. That won't help the Russians. What deliveries will stop? They have been in Europe for months. This or that equipment, this or that weapon. This is not a secret even for Russians. They understand this. That is, what came out 6 months ago from the United States of America in one format or another then comes. Therefore, it will not help. That's not what it's about. This condition is again not alive, it is not structural. It's not about anything. Only people who do not understand the format of arms supplies can talk about this. And that's it.
Thanks.
And the fact that there will be no crossing, for example, of our supply border with one or another weapon, this will also not work. Because we already have what we need in our warehouses.
Have you tried to talk to President Trump since Saturday? And, secondly, if this meeting does take place, and does not lead to an immediate ceasefire, a 30-day ceasefire, would you consider it a failure?
The question was whether I had connections with President Trump. Did we talk after Saturday when we talked to European leaders? No, they did not communicate directly. There were no direct conversations. But at the level of Kellogg, Rubio, Witkoff and others, at these levels, there are partners on our side, yes. These are daily, even several times a day communication. I think we will have even more communication in the coming days. I don't know if we will have communication with President Trump. I think it will. But I think he's already in Saudi Arabia now, right? And I don't know, it depends on his schedule, because I'm here. And the second part is about what?
What if the meeting does not lead to a ceasefire? This option is possible. Would you consider it a failure?
Usually. This will mean that Russia is not ready for diplomacy. It only depends on one side, on Russia. If Putin does not come, or if the ceasefire is not supported by the Russians, Putin, specifically him, then the only thing, Russia is not ready for any negotiations. There is no time to play games on a technical level. It will mean the only thing, that we need to be stronger, more united. And today I see only one option, sanctions. Of course, if I have a conversation with President Trump, of course, then not only sanctions. I will tell him that we need these sanctions to be powerful enough, and we need a little time for this, when the sanctions will finally have an impact. And that is why this time I want to receive the support of the Ministry of Defense, and your personal decisions should support Ukraine. With all the tools we need to defend ourselves and stay strong. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, France and Germany, which belong to the coalition of the willing, gave Russia the opportunity to cease fire until midnight. Otherwise, sanctions will be imposed. On the same evening, Moscow attacked Ukraine with drones. What are the next steps? And will there be conversations with these leaders today to discuss these next steps?
I would like everyone to perceive Ukraine's position as it is. It is not only clear and truthful. If there were 10 drone strikes tonight, 10, not 100, not 200, there were 10 drone strikes, so I want to say there were 10. This is a reduction. This does not mean that there is a ceasefire, but it can mean something. I don't know what. It's hard for me to say. And therefore, maybe the signals of our leaders, Europeans, maybe the signals of the United States. Maybe Russia wants to demonstrate that it thinks about de-escalation. I can't say. I don't believe in the Russians. But I don't want to rule out any next steps to de-escalate. Therefore, it was exactly like that.
Will you be chatting with the leaders of France and Germany today about the next steps?
Today, no. Yesterday we had connections at the level of foreign ministers. Andriy Sybiha talked with his colleagues, ministers from Germany, Poland, Great Britain, France and the United States. We have this communication. We are all on the same side that we need to impose sanctions on Russia as soon as possible, unless, of course, they support a ceasefire.
I would like to ask how you dispel the statement of the Special Representative of the President of the United States, Steve Witkoff, that between Ukraine and Russia, the negotiations in Turkey should be dominated by three issues, namely the issue of Ukrainian territories, the issue of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and the issue of Ukraine's important access to water resources. Separately, Witkoff said that Trump is sending a kind of ultimatum to Ukraine and Russia. If an agreement is not reached, then the United States will withdraw from the negotiation process as a mediator. How do you dispel these statements? Thanks.
First of all, it seems to me that I would analyze, maybe I am wrong, but I would analyze the date of Mr. Witkoff's statements. It seems to me that before the last conversations about Turkey, etc., these were his statements in one interview or another. It seems to me that this interview came out later. It seems to me so. Therefore, I would look at it not through the prism of what is happening now, but through the prism of what was happening then. But it is certainly possible to answer your questions. As for these points, which you mentioned, we saw them, what I told you, these were relevant signals from the United States when there were meetings, I think, back in London. In London or in France, when the United States gave such signals. They understood to me. I have seen these signals many times. In different formats. From intelligence and from various negotiators of this process. It seems to me that, first of all, these are signals from Russia. In my opinion, ideologically, it is very similar to them. As for the Zaporizhzhia station, access to water, it seems to me so. How can you make some kind of compromise but not make any compromise? Why? Because, as I have already emphasized, the station today it is a very complex object. Zaporizhzhia station. Only the Ukrainian side will be able to work with it. We said that if the US is interested in investing in this station, because it is impossible to raise it just like that. Specialists, our analysts told me that we believe that this is at least 2 to 2.5 years. And then it will just start working. And how much money you need to invest to make it work, no one knows yet. But the station is ours, so, of course, we want to return it. Without us, it will not work for anyone. Without our staff, without the fact that we will support the operation of this station. Impossible. Therefore, I believe that such suggestions are, give us a station. I asked, what's next? And the exit to the water? And the city of Energodar? Where will these people, employees, live? So, a lot of questions. Without water, it will not exist. There will be no security at the station. And there the question of the dam was raised, and so on. That is, so far it looks like there was such proposals. It's too early to just talk about it. First, a ceasefire, and then we will talk about stations, etc.
A small clarification. It's hard to imagine how you will talk to Putin. It's hard to imagine how you will talk to him. But what exactly will suit Ukraine if he comes, as a result of these victories? Document? Verbal agreement? Or what?
I think that the ceasefire. This is not a question that will suit you. I don't want to say now what will suit us. What we will come to is still ahead. This is a question, in principle, of justice first of all. And in general, a view of this war. How all this will end. And that's why I wouldn't go so far and deep. Although I have an absolute understanding of this process. And that's why I think we have to demonstrate some kind of result. And I think it's beneficial not only for us. I think America will still do what it said and promised. I think that if Russia does not really show a desire to end this war but can only be shown by the first initial step, a ceasefire. If it does not do this, I believe that all sanctions instruments will be involved.
Thank you, colleagues, that's all.
Thank you very much, goodbye.